Entonces, ese es el problema, que a mí, si a mí me entienden o no me entienden, es importante, yo me puedo adaptar. Pero ¿cómo es que me adapto? Porque yo siempre estoy perfeccionándome, siempre estoy tratando de escuchar acentos de otros lados, viendo películas. Yo veo que la profesora Vale pasa películas de España, de todo. El intérprete tiene que entender todos los diferentes acentos.
Que tiene que estar constantemente.
Pues, no, este señor es de Puerto Rico y usted es de Argentina, ¿lo puede interpretar? No, es el mismo idioma. Y los intérpretes, por eso vamos a hacerlo, porque nos preparamos. Yo permanentemente estoy perfeccionándome, a pesar de que hace 17 años que ejerzo de intérprete. Y antes, mi otra carrera era profesora de inglés y de español. Entonces, sí, ya estaba más o menos entrenada cuando empecé a interpretar. Me capacité para dar las certificaciones, para aprobar los exámenes de certificación. Y ahí no se termina. Ahí se empieza. Ahí se empieza. Hay que siempre estar perfeccionándose y aguzar el oído, escuchar gente de diferentes lugares. Es muy importante que puedan entenderle a personas de diferentes lugares. Que ustedes lo digan, je o you, no importa. Da lo mismo, o sea, le van a decir, es argentina, o es cordobesa, o es mexicana, o es... Incluso en Argentina no todos pronuncian igual tampoco. Como en Estados Unidos, norte, sur, New York, Atlanta, son diferentes acentos. Pero hablamos el mismo idioma. Entonces hay que seguir entrenándose. Bueno, ya les dije el final, ahora vamos al principio. Okay, I started backwards. I started by the end. You get certification and you keep training, right? But you want to know, what is this? What is a court interpreter? What does a court interpreter do? Is this a career that you might be interested in? I hope so. It's a nice, interesting career. It's challenging. It's interesting. You learn a lot of stuff. But before you start interpreting in court, you have to be prepared to handle all sorts of things, not just vocabulary, language, terminology, legal stuff. But you have to have a wide variety of medical knowledge, medical concepts. You have to have wide general education, because in court you see all sorts of people. You see litigants with very little education, and you see people that are highly educated, and you see expert witnesses, and you interpret lawyers and doctors and investigators of all sorts of subjects. And so forensics, all that is not something you talk about every day. You have to read a lot in order to familiarize yourself with the vocabulary and understand the concepts before you start interpreting. But you always learn and you always keep perfecting. So how do we start? Well, how to become a court interpreter? Different ways. Different ways take us to Rome. But the way I started, I was first a teacher. I started teaching. I taught English as a second language in Argentina. So I went to teacher training college. So my first career is as a teacher. And I taught for 20 years. English first, and then I started teaching Spanish too. Not because I trained to teach in Spanish, but because somebody thought if I could teach English and that was my second language, why couldn't I teach Spanish? And I was living in Australia and Singapore. Well, you studied that. Well, but it's your first language. You're a good teacher, So, well, the methodology applied, but it was more difficult for me, believe it or not, to teach Spanish as a second language than English as a second language, because I had learned that first as a student, and then I learned how to teach it, and there were plenty of materials for Spanish. There were not so many when I started. Anyway, I taught for about 20 years, and I met Adriana in my other career. And after a while, I started venturing into translating and interpretation. first contracting interpreters for conferences, business related, and some of the conference interpreters also work in court. So one of the interpreters that I hired often for conferences said, "Why don't you interpret?" I don't know, I never interpret, I don't know how to. Well, you can train. And somebody asked, and one of the questions that I'm going to try to answer today, and if not, we'll sort of continue either online or we'll talk about it. Somebody asked if there was somebody that mentored me or somebody that had an influence in me deciding to become an interpreter. And yes, this was a very good court interpreter. She now works in DC Federal Court, which is a coordinator of interpreting services there. But at the time, she was conference interpreter, and I hired her to do some conferences, and then she encouraged me to pursue it. And so she pointed me in the direction of the associations, professional associations, NAGIT, AGA, and I started attending conferences for training, and I started self-training. And I attended many, many courses all over the country because at the time there was no online learning. So I had to travel. And basically with the professional association, there's always conferences available. So, but I went all over the place and I trained hard, and then I took my certification exam, my first exam with the state courts in Maryland. So if you want to become a court interpreter in Maryland, let's start by Maryland, but this applies to other states as well. The courts have a program, court interpreting program, that administers the exam. The exam for certification is available for Spanish and some other languages, I know 4, 5, or 6 languages. And so if you qualify, and by qualify means first you attend a workshop, so you have to be bilingual to start with, then attend a workshop that tells you what the requirements are, then you're invited to an interview where they check your level of fluency in one or the other language. And if you have the basic requirements, you are invited to sit for the exam. And that's how you become certified in Maryland. Some languages, they don't have certification. And when I say Maryland, it's not only Maryland, but many other states, and I don't know how many at the moment. But when I took my exam in 2001 or 2000, the first exam I took for the state, 28 states participated in the National Consortium of State Courts. So all of those states use the same exam, basically. So you could certify Maryland and work in another state that participated in the consortium. Other states, the requirement is lower. Like I know people that went to Delaware to take the exam because they needed 60% to pass, while in Maryland they needed 70, something like that. But it's the same exam. So that's how you can become a court interpreter in Maryland. You need to apply for certification. And that's not always the thing, but it's doable. It's doable. You have to train for it. I actually, Professor Val invited me to talk to you about this because she saw that I was teaching online court interpreting. So she said, can you come and talk to my students and tell them what this consists of, what they need to, if they wanted to pursue this as a career. So in order to pass the exam, you have to train. And what you have to train is not just in Spanish, not just in English, or whatever language you choose to do, right? Because in order to be an interpreter, it's a given, you have to know 2 languages very, very well. Right? If you want to be a court interpreter, you have to have a command of the 2 languages that allows you to communicate fluently with all the court participants. As I said, litigants, lawyers, forensic experts, judges, they don't talk the way you talk at the dinner table. But okay, you train. You know, you learn the vocabulary, you read according to the subjects that you're going to be dealing with, and you acquire that vocabulary, the terminology. In order to start training, you have to be fluent, very fluent in the two languages. When I say very fluent, is why? Because there are different settings in which you can interpret. I'm talking specifically of court interpretation, but I wanted to tell you that's not the only interpreting or setting where you can work as an interpreter. You can start by working as a community interpreter. The requirement is a little bit lower for a community interpreter. Why is it a little bit lower? Well, because mostly if you work as a community interpreter, you're going to interpret consecutively most of the time. Nobody's going to go to jail if you misinterpret. There's less at stake. You have more time to think, to research, to ask again. You don't have to do simultaneous, which is more difficult in the beginning. Then when you learn it, some of my colleagues would say consecutive is more difficult than simultaneous. So it depends on what level you are. But for community interpretation, say you can interpret between a social worker and somebody who's going to get foodstuffs, or a social worker in different settings, medical appointments, somebody calling to make an appointment. You can work on the phone. It's always consecutive. Or there's a lot of resources for the Spanish-speaking community or communities. Many hospitals offer medical interpretation on the phone too. Sometimes I do that too also on my off hours, interpret from home sometimes on the phone. So that is a very good place to start, because you acquire a lot of practice in consecutive interpreting. You have many different situations that come up on the phone, and people from different countries that speak with different accents, and you get your ear trained. And that's why I keep doing it. I want to hear people all the time from different places, because this is like training to run a marathon. You know, we can all run, but can we run a marathon? You know, I mean, if you don't run every day, you're not going to finish that marathon, right? But if you don't interpret every day, and if you don't practice your skills all the time, when you have to do it simultaneously, when you have to do different subjects, it's not going to come out, right? So I do this every day. So if I don't have cases in court, or if I'm home, I sometimes interpret on the phone too. And it keeps my skills, you know, and my ear trained to different settings. So, for example, also on the phone, I get calls from immigration, from detention centers, people that are going for physical evaluation, admissions. You know, after a while, the questions become easy, and you have time. It's consecutive. You can always ask for repetition. It's one sentence, one question, or two or three. Or maybe somebody wants to read a paragraph and say, listen, I have to read your disclaimer, you know, and they go, so you as the interpreter that's on the phone or in person there can say, please can you stop after 2 sentences, or you can gesture and have the person stop, and then you render your interpretation and then continue, or you can be reading along. You can do that in court. They keep going. The proceeding doesn't stop, you know, so you have to interpret simultaneously most of the time, only consecutive on this side. So the second, and the one that I am training now, and is what I do as a profession every day, is court interpreter. To be a court interpreter, you really need a certification. There are some people that start without a certification. There's a classification that's called eligible interpreters, and that means somebody started the process, went through the interviews, the initial workshop, and is a candidate to take the exam. On occasion, those people are called to interpret for simple hearings in court. I can tell you it doesn't happen very often in Spanish because we have many good certified interpreters in Spanish. But it does happen more often in other languages because languages other than Spanish, they don't have many people certified or available. So they would sometimes call people that are eligible, not as qualified, you know. So, but you really need a certification because there's a lot of at stake. What you interpret in court is court hearings, trials, civil, criminal proceedings, traffic. So when you start, say if you become eligible, you would start interpreting simple cases like traffic cases, district court. Those are relatively simple. Doesn't mean you can do it without training, because when you have a police officer reading a report on the record, you're going to have to do simultaneous, and if you haven't heard it before, you're not going to be able to do it. But after training a little bit, you become familiar with the formulas and the patterns. The police reports are written and the way that they're described, what happens when they stop somebody for a DUI, it becomes repetitive. So after a while, you can do it faster because you have trained. And the simultaneous in this portion is not very long. So those are short hearings for traffic. When you have trials, it's a different story. You have to interpret mostly simultaneous all day. What we do is we take turns, we work in teams, 2 interpreters, taking the microphone every 20 minutes or half hour. So one is active and one is passive. Why do we do that? Because interpreting simultaneously is very, very taxing. And after half hour, your fatigue starts to set in. So your mind starts playing tricks on you. You get fatigued, you can start making mistakes. You will start making mistakes because it's impossible to keep that level of concentration and that speed without stopping.
And trials go on for several days.
They go for several days. Yeah. Sometimes it's 1 day, sometimes it's 4 or 5 or a week. Doesn't mean you have to interpret the whole trial. Sometimes they bring different people to interpret long trials, whoever is available. But definitely you have to last a whole day at least to interpret in a trial. And that is with a team interpreter. So what we're going to do when we interpret simultaneously, which is most of the trial, because we're going to interpret the judge starting the proceeding, people introducing themselves, the lawyers start with opening arguments, and the opening arguments is the lawyers are presenting to a jury or to the judge what they're going to try to prove during the trial. Lawyers are very, very eloquent. Plus, they prepare for this for weeks or months, and you haven't heard a thing before. And you have to listen to what the lawyer is saying, understand it in English, speaking in English most of the time. Then you understand the concept in English, you keep listening while you think, how do I say that in Spanish? Say it in Spanish and keep listening and say it in Spanish and keep listening to English. It's multitasking at its best. Your brain is going at 1,000 miles per minute. Plus the attorneys sometimes speak at 1,000 words per minute, sometimes no. Depending, if they're talking to the jury, they're going to be more deliberate because they want the jury to pay attention and to understand when they dramatize. But still, if you're the interpreter there, you haven't heard the story. If you're good, and well, if you do your due diligence, you're going to try to find out what kind of trial you're going to have before you walk in, right? But still, you don't have much information, even if you research. The lawyers are not going to tell you the strategy, what it is about, unless you may know because you participated in a procedure before related to the case, part of the investigation, or you read in the paper or something. But most of the times when they start with opening, you have to have your ears and eyes open and try to take notes while you're interpreting and try to save those notes because you're going to use it through the trial. but the first day is tough. First day, you have no idea. The lawyer is talking 1,000 words per minute and has prepared all these arguments and has all these materials there. He's reading and knows it by heart, and you haven't heard. So that's very hard. And after half hour, your mind is, you know, so you pass the microphone. Sometimes with interpreters that have a lot of experience, we may decide, okay, say I'm interpreting with Professor Val, and say, what do you want to do, half hour or 20 minutes? Well, let's do half hour. But then we hear this attorney is going 1,000 words per minute and is talking very low and very, you're hearing from the back, and so you get tired. Okay, look at me, pass the mic, you know. Your partner is there to help, support. It's always really, when I say one is active, one is passive, really the one that's passive is not so passive. It's paying attention, taking notes. Sometimes, as I'm doing simultaneous, but a little bit behind because I have to finish hearing the concept or the phrase or the sentence before I really start rendering the interpretation. You know, Spanish and English have different syntax. So it's not that you go word by word. You can't go word by word. You get something nonsensical. You have to hear a little bit more of the sentence or the phrase or the unit of meaning to really understand, and then you render while you keep listening to what he keeps talking about or she keeps talking about. So it is very taxing, and that's why every 20 minutes we pass the mic, and that's why it needs a lot of preparation. So you're going to start with the trials. You're going to start with simple proceedings, hearings, traffic, child support, things like that. We also interpret not just in court, but things that have to do with court cases outside of the courtroom, but have an impact in the court. And for that, they require certified interpreters too, because they're preparing for trial or they are dealing with evidence that's going to be presented at trial. So it has to be interpreted accurately. For example, the positions. You know what a deposition is? Anybody? No? Okay. Deposition is sort of like a court proceeding, but instead of being done in court, it's done at a lawyer's office usually, or maybe the public library. There's a courthouse, modern courthouse, I think it's Montgomery County, that has special meeting rooms where lawyers can meet and do the depositions there. So this is a proceeding that is recorded. It's where they're taking evidence from a witness before trial. And that evidence, that interrogation of the witness is done by the opposing party with his lawyer present and with a court reporter who's typing and recording the proceeding. She's going or he's going to make a record of that proceeding. Usually it's 2-3 hours, it may be all day, depends how many witnesses or how involved is the case. So it's in preparation for trial that this is done. Sometimes it doesn't get to trial because after the deposition they figure, oh, we have so much evidence here, you know, we better settle the case because we're not going to win a trial. So after hearing the evidence, deposing the witnesses, they may decide to settle or not. And then that deposition, the transcript, is presented at trial. And sometimes the same witness is called on the stand at trial. And is going to be asked some of the same questions, and if there is a discrepancy, that is a reason to challenge. I mean, the lawyer is going to try to discredit that witness on the stand, or the lawyer. So it's going to say, well, but you said on the deposition, remember when I took your deposition on such and such a date, remember that you told me something different? Well, you better have told something different and not be a mistake that the interpreter made, because then we're in trouble. So that's why it has to be a certified interpreter, the one that interprets in court and in the positions that are going to be used in court. You know, otherwise, it's like a legal document. It has no value. You know, it's not done by somebody who is qualified to do it. There's no room for misinterpretation. What the witness says at the deposition or in trial has to be interpreted accurately. So the person that's interpreting needs to know what he or she is doing before we interpret in court. Every time, every proceeding, we raise the right hand and we take an oath. The interpreter's oath says that we're going to interpret completely, faithfully, and impartially, and to refrain from disclosing confidential or privileged information obtained by someone in the proceeding. So if I interpret in the deposition, and this case is going to trial, then I work with a lawyer that was there in another case, that has some interest. Well, what I interpret there goes in one ear out the other. My notes are destroyed, and I'm not going to comment what I interpret in the deposition or a grand jury. God forbid, grand juries are totally secret, and secret proceedings. You can put the life of a witness at risk by disclosing information. So, interpreters hear a lot of things, and interpret for opposing parties all the time. In court, the adversarial system, requires that people are, confronting each other, and sometimes you have people on both sides that require your services. But they don't need a separate interpreter, because you're not going to side with one or the other. You're the official court interpreter, and you interpret faithfully and impartially. You don't have to like the person, you don't have to agree with what they say on the stand. Most of the times we interpret for nasty people out there, some defending, some are nice, but and sometimes for the victim, and you may feel sorry for the victim. Well, it doesn't have to show. Your interpretation is to be impartial, whether you feel sorry or not, or whether you think this guy is a jerk or whatever, yes sir, you interpret and that's it, and you don't interact. So we interpret in correlated situations like depositions, jail visits, and again, you don't have to take this, but most of us take these jobs, go to visit the defendants in jail with the attorney, so that the attorney can have the chance to talk to his client before trial, or prepare for trial, or maybe there's a plea agreement, an offer that the prosecution has extended, and the lawyer has to tell his client, well, the prosecution is offering you this, if you plead guilty to this, instead of 10 years, we give you 5 or whatever, what you want to do. So he explains the deal.
It's important that all understand what they are talking about.
They have to understand before they go in front of the judge. They can't accept the plea deal if they don't know what it is about. So, yeah, some of my colleagues say, oh, I don't like going to jail. I said, well, no, I like it or not, but it's part of the job, It is part of the job. You can say no if you're a freelancer and say, just work in the court. But you're missing a lot too, because also you get the whole story when you go and, you're more prepared when you're called for trial on that same case, and you work for the prosecution, you work for the defense attorney, and you went to the jail visit, and you went with a probation officer for the interview. Then you're prepared. Then you go to trial, you know the story before it starts. That is a big advantage. It's very different than going cold in a serious case to trial, Murder, drugs, conspiracy, those are big things. And if you have no idea and you have never heard these names and nicknames and stuff, oh my, it's hard to do it simultaneously. But if you have been to the jail and you read the plea agreement and you interpreted with the probation officer who did the pre-investigation, whatever, so you start putting the pieces together. We don't follow one case in particular, but sometimes you have cases that are related, and you start getting prepared. You're more prepared when you go to trial on that subject. So these are things that have an impact in the court case. And so I think it's important to participate and interpret also in court-related proceedings, not just in court. Trial preparation, witnesses are going to appear on the stand. So if you have done interviews of the positions of the witnesses, you don't have to know the whole thing, but when you hear one or another, you know, you're more prepared. Social services evaluations also stem from court cases. You know, sometimes there's cases of custody that the judge orders an evaluation, psychological evaluation, competence evaluation. Those are things that we also interpret, all correlated. And you have to have the same qualifications to interpret that, because those have an impact in the court case. Although it's easier to interpret the jail visit and the deposition because it's consecutive and you can signal to slow down, stop, or ask for repetition, what you cannot do in court. But you have to have the same level of competence. Another kind of interpretation, I don't want to take too long with that because I want to show you some examples. Conference interpreter, that is the highest actually level of interpreting. And that is something that you can also pursue. You also need to be bilingual, but you can be an excellent conference interpreter and interpret into one direction only. That means you interpret into your native language, which is the one you are most confident with, and you can interpret from your B language. We call A and B language. A would be your native language, B would be your second language that you have full command of. So you can be a conference interpreter and not go both ways, because you can, most conference interpreters would choose one, they specialize in one. And you interpret international meetings, business, science, UN department, all sorts of things related, a lot to do with commerce and politics or international meetings. That's another interesting avenue. It's very difficult to train for conference interpreter and to get the recognition and to get certifications in this.
Do you need a special certification for?
Well, usually it is international associations that recognize the credentials, but it's like the chicken and the egg. In order to be recognized, you have to have so many hours of booth work and have to be recognized by partners that have worked with you, but who's going to give you the job to work in the booth if you have no, so it's hard. A lot of people start at the Department of State where they have different levels, and so they start instead of, I don't remember what they are all called. One of the levels, it used to be called escort interpreter, and they changed the name because they thought escort was a bad word. But basically, escort interpreter is the one that does consecutive interpreting, accompanying dignitaries and staff to meetings and stuff, and does consecutive. While the simultaneous interpreter, conference interpreter level, would do the meetings where they do the presentations in simultaneous mode in the booth. And so those are different levels, and people will start with one and gradually graduate to the other. But let's go back to court interpreting. So in order to interpret in court and to pass the exam, you need to master 3 modes of interpretation. These are the 3 modes: consecutive, simultaneous, and sight interpretation. Consecutive, you have to do English to Spanish, Spanish to English, and I put Spanish because it's a Spanish class, but whatever language, right? In the United States, English and another language. You have to go both directions. While, as I said, in conference, you can go in one direction only, and have a good job as a conference interpreter, but in court, you have to really be able to go from one to the other, back and forth all the time. Because there's interrogation of witnesses, and there is simultaneous and consecutive all the time, and you have to go back and forth all the time. So you really have to have good command of both. You will be interpreting mostly simultaneous into Spanish. So the exam for certification only tests for the state of Maryland, right? I also have certification from NAJIT, the National Association of Judicial Interpreters and Translators, and they do test Spanish into English as well in simultaneous. So that's another credential. But for the state of Maryland, you're tested simultaneous into Spanish only, or into your foreign language. Because what you're doing in the courtroom is interpreting for a defendant that doesn't speak English or doesn't speak English well. We call it LEPs, limited English proficiency, or limited English speaker. So the LEP is the person that needs the interpretation, right? So you're going to interpret whatever the lawyer says, his lawyer, the other lawyer, the judge, anybody who's talking, everything that's been said in the courtroom about his case, he needs to hear it all, he or she, right? Because if he's a defendant in the case, not he's a witness in the front story, but if he's a defendant in the case, he has the right to confront the witnesses and to know what he's accused of and to defend himself and to help in his defense. He doesn't understand what's going on. Not just when he's asked to or when he's asked questions. He has to understand the whole thing. What have people said about his case? What is the prosecutor accusing him of? What do his witnesses say? What are the lawyers talking about the case? They're talking to each other. And sometimes, I said, well, I said to the attorney, may I have a copy of what you're reading? Because it's for the judge. Well, if you're saying it out loud, I have to interpret for your client, Yeah, the judge knows it, you read it before, he has a copy, and I've never seen it or heard it, and I have to, to follow. His client has the right to hear.
To give you a
document. Sometimes I have to request, he's not obliged, but, it helps if I have it too, so I can follow them. And I can ask him to slow down because, the other people that they're studying jurisprudence and they have prepared. I have no idea what they're saying. So I can interpret if I have no idea. That's for sure. So in that case, I do ask them to slow down or to give me a copy and try to read along. So I'm interpreting everything that's being said about this case for a defendant in this case. There are different scenarios, but this is the most common. For a defendant, so it's simultaneous into Spanish. So I can't stop everybody. I can't stop the judge and the attorneys and say, excuse me, every once in a while I can ask, but they go on, and I have to catch up. So into Spanish simultaneous. Consecutive, it has to go both ways. When do I do consecutive? Say the same defendant may take the stand as a witness in his own defense, or he may be asked just to say your name, raise your right hand, are you going to tell the truth, and he may be asked a few questions for a plea deal, or if it's a trial, he may want to testify, or even after he pled guilty, he has a right of allocution, which means he can say whatever he wants to the judge before he imposes sentence. So he's going to talk. And so he's going to speak in Spanish, and I have to interpret for the judge and the jury and whoever is present, if there's a jury or whoever, into English for the record. In that case, it's consecutive, it's not simultaneous, because I'm going into the language of record, into English. The proceeding is being recorded, and there's a court reporter that nowadays sometimes it's all recorded, sometimes there's somebody typing, depending on the place and the type of case. But a transcript is generated after the proceeding. So everything has to be clear on the record. So I can't be mumbling as I'm doing when I'm interpreting for the defendant. I'm going very softly on my microphone simultaneously. I'm not speaking over other people. I'm speaking at the same time but at a lower tone of voice. And the defendant is listening on his hearings. But when the defendant is being asked questions on the stand, then it's question, interpretation, answer, interpretation, question, interpretation, answer, interpretation. It's consecutive mode. So there's an utterance, there's a pause, there's a rendition, the interpretation. Utterance, pause, rendition. It's not simultaneous. And this has to go in both ways, and as it goes on the record, it has to be consecutive, because otherwise the court reporter cannot. Take it down? Yes. 10 minutes, oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. So, do you understand what is, this is what you're going to be tested on in order to be a court interpreter. Well, sight interpretation is the other mode of interpretation that you also need to do in the courtroom. We don't do this very often, but we have to be able to do it. Sight is a combination of consecutive interpretation and translation. Translation is when you have a document, say birth certificate, and say I need to submit this for a passport, I need this translated. So I give it to a translator, it's going to translate into writing. Well, in court, we're not translators, we're interpreters, but sometimes we have to interpret documents. Hopefully not very often, because those should be translated ahead of time. So a translator that has the time to look it up and research and do all. So it's presented as evidence in the legal document. But sometimes we have situations, especially nowadays with technology, where somebody comes with a text message. I do transcription translation of text messages for trials too sometimes. And so, well, they're going to give me the whole recording and I'm going to listen and transcribe and then translate. And so if this is going to be presented at trial, they will have it all ready and writing for the jurors and everybody to see. But that's for a big trial. Drug investigation that they take 5 years with the FBI and everything, and they have the money to have it sent out to translate, and they always do that, you know, and so they know what to expect. But in circuit court, district court, sometimes we have cases like domestic violence cases, where people are not represented, and they come, it's an emergency petition, and you know, somebody has been threatened, and there's a real danger, and here's a threat. Yeah, come tell me what he said. Well, I have proof here. I have this on my phone. Well, the judge can say, yeah, madam, go find a translator, print that screen, bring me a certified copy, and then maybe I issue a protection order next month. Yeah. Person needs protection now, and she has proof that she's been threatened. I say she is the most common case, that's not all. Don't take me as sexist. So, you know, she has a text message, she printed it out, and it's 1 or 2 messages, you know. It's hard, let me tell you, especially because they're abbreviated. God knows what language people are using, so it's better to have it prepared before. But if this person had a lawyer, the lawyer would have taken care of that. But oftentimes they come without a lawyer, the people are pro se, and they have what they have, and this is what they have, and the judges will say, well, can you read me that? That's in Spanish. I say, well, I'm an interpreter. Or there's a letter, something like that. Not a legal document, so I can do it not on the spot. I would say, Your Honor, may I have 5 minutes, may I have 10 minutes, may I have a look? So I read it, and especially if it's written, you know, I want to know what it says, I want to know that I understand before I go on the record live, when it's being recorded, and it's going to be transcribed.
And some messages are really,
they're very hard to interpret sometimes. So, well, I have to do my best, and I say, you know, illegible, unintelligible, whatever I can see or I can hear, I interpret it. I can't, you know, but that's why from recordings there's a lot of unintelligible. But sight interpretation is done for documents that are presented that have not been previously translated, but they should have been translated most of the time. So hopefully we don't have to do that often, but sometimes we do. Like maybe a letter, maybe a birth certificate. If it's going to be presented as evidence, it has to be translated. But sometimes, you know, it's just that, well, they want to just clarify the date of birth because there's a question, well, this person is a juvenile or an adult. Is he in the right court? It happened recently, actually. Now it has a big impact in the sentence. And so this guy didn't know how old he was. So he said 17, 18, I don't know. My mother told me, where's your first birth certificate? They postponed the case and then he brought the birth certificate the next time. It wasn't translated, of course. So what happened? The judge said, well, I'm an interpreter. Can you read, you know, date of birth, place of birth, you know? So I read it on the record. So it happens sometimes that papers are introduced and have not been translated, so we're called to interpret on the spot. And that's called side interpretation because it's from the written paper to oral rendition. Okay. Moving on. Okay. Well, I told you a little bit about the interpreting oaths. They need to be neutral. I think we'll talk about that. Neutral and impartial. We interpret for all sides. We don't take sides, and we stick to the role of interpreting. We don't advise, we don't add, we don't omit, we don't clarify. What we hear, as we hear, is what we say. So, and we have to keep in mind, we have to be neutral whether we have sympathies or not.
You don't have to show your.
You don't have to show your feelings. You have to keep a poker face, and if you hear things that you don't like or you're about to burst into tears, you have to compose yourself. It helps if you are prepared for what you're going to interpret, because sometimes you can be surprised by very nasty things. And if it's something that's going to impact you to the level that it may show in your voice or something, then you should recuse yourself, because it is not fair. And it's not interpreted impartially if you are showing some kind of bias, which is very human, and you sympathize with one or the other, but you have to keep the professional demeanor and the look and not show partiality one way or the other. So it helps to be prepared. Okay, so another thing we have to keep in mind when we're interpreting is that we are the conduit. We are not part of the case. We don't have a dog in the sun. And sometimes people don't understand that. And yeah, people expect you to be able to help the Spanish-speaking person just because you speak the same language. To interpret, the lawyer is to defend, the prosecutor to prosecute, the judge is to judge, and you're there to interpret. And you stay in your role and always in the middle, and you take what you hear as you hear, and you don't explain, expand, even if you have the most experience, okay, you stay to your role. And I don't need to be people separate from their lawyers or, you know, so when somebody says, so can you accompany my client, or can you explain this to my client when I go to the bathroom? Sometimes I just say that. No, I don't explain. You can explain when I interpret. I'm not going to stay alone with that person, because then I'm going to interpret in the courtroom for both sides, and then someone's going to say, well, you know, the interpreter was helping my ex-wife, you know. I'm like, no. It has to be clear that we're in the middle. We're not with one or the other, and we try to avoid avoid situations where you may be alone with one person. Sometimes the lawyers don't realize that, so we have to make sure what we do, and we let them know that we can't do it. It's lack of ethics, violation of ethics. Sight interpretation, I already told you what this is about, and examples of sight interpretation or translation. It's called both, sight interpretation or sight translation. So it's documents, birth certificate, letter, driver's license, text message, a note. Could be something like that.
Anything that is last minute that we need to-
Anything that's last minute, because if it's a contract about which they're going to be arguing, because this is a civil case, it has to be translated. And you can do it on the spot. Okay, consecutive interpretation. These are examples of consecutive. Like I said, when a witness is on the stand, who speaks a second language, limited English proficiency, or a defendant is on the stand as a witness, or there's an interrogation of the defendant, could be, like I said, the probation officer or somebody taking the deposition. For example, when somebody pleads guilty, the judge needs to make sure the person understands what he's pleading guilty to and that he's waiving the right to trial. So the lawyer would have prepared the person before that. So when he goes in front of the judge, it's clear that he has his right to plead guilty and to accept all the rights that he's given up. But the judge has to make sure of that. It's not the lawyer's idea. It's the defendant that he's pleading guilty voluntarily. Nobody has promised anything. Nobody has coerced him, threatened, blah, blah, blah. So there's a list of questions that the judge has to ask the defendant before he is guilty, before the judge accepts, to make sure that he's doing it intelligently, voluntarily, knowing the rights he's waiving. So that's those are a series of questions, and that's consecutive. Has to be on the record. Deposition, as we said, out of court preparation, we already covered. Simultaneous interpretation, as I say, everything that happens in the courtroom, we need to stop. Okay. So, opening statements, arguments, jury instructions, arraignments, testimony, objections, everything that happens in the courtroom is interpreted simultaneously, except when the witness is on the stand or the judge is asking the defendant questions that go on the record. Okay? That's it. I was planning to give you an example to have you, but I don't think we have time.
They may have questions.
I have questions, and I had the idea that I was going to answer all the questions, and I printed what you sent me back. Let me briefly tell you this. I know you sent me questions on Facebook, and I had intention of answering after, either on Facebook, or if you want, we can do an online meeting on one evening or Saturday. But I would have to invite you to that, and then we can do it open mic or chat, to continue with the questions. If you would like that, then I will need your email to invite you to that. If not, I'll take whatever questions I can take now, and then I will answer what I have. Yes.
Gracias, señora Victoria, por venir. I was wondering when you said that you have enough certified Spanish interpreters. So is there still demand for those? And
yeah,
also,
there's always demand because the Spanish-speaking population is growing.
Okay.
And there are people that try and quit. There are people that say this is not for me, and the people that try and don't get to the level. So there's always demand for new interpreters. You have to, do the process of certifying, but there's always demand. There's a lot of demand. Actually, most of the interpreters that I know work freelance, and I work freelance for 15 years. There's never lack of work. Once you get established, but you have to get established, get certified, good at what you do, and they call you.
how much do they make?
That's a good question. Well, if you're on your own, supposedly you can set your own rates, right? Then if you deal with attorneys or private private situations, but for the courts, they have a rate. And in Maryland, for non-certified, eligible is I think $30 or $35 per hour, with a minimum of 2 hours. For certified is $55 per hour, with a minimum of 2. And I know it sounds like a lot, but you don't work 8 hours a day as a freelancer. Sometimes all you work is 2 hours, sometimes 4 hours, because you have to go from one courtroom from one courthouse to the other. You have to be able to travel. You have to drive one place to the other. They pay you for driving too. Traveling time is half the rate if you go over 30 miles from your home. So they pay you mileage and parking. So 2 hours is the minimum for state. Different states have different rates. I just heard that in the state of New York, they just increased the rates. But in the state of New York, instead of having 2 hour minimum, they have a half-day minimum, which makes more sense. I wish it was like that in Maryland, because really to go and come back, it takes you the morning for 2 hours, right? And so in New York, it's half day or full day, but also they have more volume, so they can afford that. And a half day, they increase it from 140 to 170, and full day from $250 to $300. Full day. Then that's for certified. So if you look at it, well, yeah, it looks like it's lower than Maryland, but really it's not, because it's rare when they pay you the 4 hours. They pay you the 4 hours if they book you for the trial, and then the trial is canceled, then they pay you the minimum of 4. But otherwise, most of the times it's 2, 2.5. If it's for trial, then it's more. But it's not every day 8 hours. Right? You may work 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon in a different place, and you have to travel from place to place. So I think that half the rate makes more sense, but. And I personally don't work. Well, now I'm working as a staff interpreter, but I have federal certification now, and federal courts pay full day or half rate or half. And before I took this position, I would not work for 2 hours. But I had established myself for 15 years, and I have the federal certification. I can say.
Probably when you start, you have to.
When you start, you have to work for the 2 hours. 2 hours and then 4, and then, but you start filling your calendar. As people get to know you, they call you more, and it's not just the course. You can work for attorneys, you can do depositions, you can do other things. So, yes, it varies from state to state. In the state of Maryland, that's where it is, and I give an idea about New York, and Virginia is a little bit more, DC is it's about the same, but they don't pay you mileage because there's public transportation everywhere. I don't know about New York too, if they pay mileage or not. In Maryland, they pay mileage because you have to drive to go to different courthouses.
How long and how much is the training? You mentioned online training.
Well, that's, the training, it depends on the person really. I developed a program that realistically can be accomplished in less than a year. It's 3 courses of 3 months each. That's assumed, so it's 12 weeks, webinars of 12 weeks, level 1, 12 weeks, level 2, 12 weeks, level 3. So it goes from beginner, for somebody who has no experience in court interpreting, to intermediate, somebody who has some experience, maybe is waiting to take an exam, to advanced, and some people that are already certified and need to do continuing education will take level 3. The idea is if you start to take from 1 to 3, but I didn't do it all as one because some people may not need that, may need just, refresher.
It's online.
It's online. It's online. That assumes, it's not that you're going to get certification just by attending those once a week webinars. The idea is there's recommendations for practice every day and exercises, plenty of practice and exercises. And the idea is if you're ready to put the time, to practice as recommended, sometimes 1 hour, sometimes 2 hours, but on a regular basis during that period of time, and you start with a good level of command of both languages, then in 9 months to a year, you should be able to sit for the exam and pass it. The program covers from beginner to advanced, from simple hearings to trials. But this is something that is skill-based. So the theory is not going to get you the certification. A 4-year course in college or a 2-year master doesn't give you a certification either. There are masters out of town and people finish the course, but they still need to take the certification because that says that you are attending the classes and you completed the requirements. But to be able
Without
to pass the certification
you have no
exam,
work.
you have no work. It's like taking the board for the
Lawyer.
attorneys. They go to
Medical
law school,
doctor.
but then you have to take the board. So, and you may go to school or training by yourself or training different ways, but the thing is to have the skills to interpret simultaneously, consecutive, and side on various subjects at the speed that is required. And that's accomplished with practice, lots of practice. And before you start training for that, you have to have the full command of both languages. And after that, you have to keep reading in both languages. Reading and listening. I still do it. And that's why people say, why are you still doing telephonic? I mean, it's tough. I say, well, I do it from home, I do it from time to time, but it's to keep my ear trained.
Do you have information on the online training that I can
Yes, she
pass to
has.
students?
Oh, I have this, yes, and
Yes.
and if you would like me to send you information also, or to do
A webinar.
a webinar for information
Could you take a
to.
few for the class? Or do
Oh,
you-
sure.
okay.
You want to pass them?
Oh, thank
Thank
Thank you, Eddie.
Okay.
Y muchas gracias, Victoria, por venir a And there is coffee and cookies, so please.
Good is
Gracias.
good.